cards for joys and sorrows after the first hymn. Please fill them out or type them into the chat box if you're watching from home. We have a few other announcements.
This meeting is being recorded.
First, a reminder, I think there are probably still tickets available to Call to Care, which is coming up on February 11th at Crosswinds Wesleyan Church. It is a fundraiser for a group that is helping to support a family from Ukraine. It should be a good show. You can see Pat Mills if you'd like some tickets. They're $20 in advance, $25 at the door. And on February 12th, during our regular potluck, so that's next Sunday, we will be hosting a dinner church, which is related to our Article 2. No prior knowledge is needed. Assumption is that only a person that you are aware of our 7 principles. We can all learn together. So there'll be more information in the newsletter coming up this week. And one more thing, I know some of you know about it. One of our small groups is attending. There's a play on the February 24th, which is a Friday, I think. And it's at Fort Hill Performing Arts Center. It's being performed by a spoken artist, Dasha Kelly. And it is a play about race relations in this country. It's called Making Cake. And also in the cast is Connie Fredericks Malone from Canandaigua, who some of you may know. So I hope there are tickets still available for that too. Are there any other announcements for the good of the community? Please remember to silence your cell phones if you haven't already. And now we enter a space of worship. Please join me in our words for lighting the chalice. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together.
Good morning. It's wonderful to be here again at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Canandaigua, this warm and welcoming space and this warm and welcoming community. Thank you for having me. Our opening words to get us started this morning are from activist and writer and Sikh American Valerie Kaur, author of the book See No Stranger. Valerie writes, "I believe that deep wisdom resides within each of us. Some call this voice by different sacred names: Spirit, God, Jesus, Allah, Om, Buddha nature, Waheguru. Others think of this voice as the intuition one hears when in a calm state of mind. Whatever name we choose, listening to our deepest wisdom requires disciplined practice. The loudest voices in the world right now that we hear most often are the ones running on the energy of fear, criticism, and cruelty. But we must not lose ourselves at the feet of others. The most vigilant spiritual practice is finding seconds of solitude to get quiet enough to hear the wise one within." And now, if you'll please join me in our opening hymn. It's number 352, Find a Stillness. And do we normally rise in body or spirit when we sing? Okay, great. Please join me.
Find
And we are a community that holds one another in our celebrations and in our pain. We welcome you to share the joys and sorrows by writing them down on the card you found on your chair and placing them in the basket when it comes around by you, or by typing them in the chat box. Know that whatever your heart is holding today, whether shared or not, we are with you.
Our time for all ages today is a story called Only the Seed. Once upon a time, a pilgrim set out on a long journey in search of peace, joy, and love. This pilgrim walked for many, many weary miles, and time passed. He wondered if he would ever reach his destination. Gradually, these young, lively steps of the pilgrim became slower and more difficult. The pilgrim's journey passed through landscapes that were not always happy ones, through wars and sickness, through quarrels and rejections and separations, to a land where it seemed the more people possessed, the more warlike they became, the more they had to defend themselves, the more they needed to attack each other. Longing for peace, they prepared for war. Longing for love, they surrounded themselves with walls of distrust and barriers made of fear. Longing for their life, they were walking deeper into death. But one morning, the pilgrim, weary now and beginning to lose hope, came to a little cottage at the wayside. Now, something about this little cottage just attracted this pilgrim. It was like the cottage seemed lit up from the inside. There was something warm and homey about it. So full of curiosity, he went inside. And inside the cottage was a little shop counter and a shop window. Now, behind the counter stood a shopkeeper. And inside and behind the counter, it was hard to judge the shopkeeper's age. It was hard to even say for sure whether the shopkeeper was a man, a woman, some other gender. There was an air of timelessness about this place. "What would you like?" said the shopkeeper in a very kindly voice. "Well, what do you have here?" said the pilgrim. "Oh, we have all the things that you most long for," replied the shopkeeper. "Just tell me what you desire." Well, the pilgrim hardly knew where to begin with that question. So many desires came rushing to mind. Well, first of all, I want peace in my family, in my native land, and in the whole world. And I want to make something good out of my life. And I want those who are sick to be well again. And I want people who are lonely to have friends. And I want all the people that are hungry to have enough to eat. And I also want every child born on this planet today to have a chance to be educated. And I want everyone on earth to live in freedom. And I want this whole world to be a kingdom of love. There was a pause while the pilgrim reviewed the shopping list. Gently, the shopkeeper broke in. "I'm sorry," came the quiet reply. "I should have explained. We don't supply the fruits here. We only supply the seeds. You must take them home and plant them and care for them, and then they may grow into the fruits you desire." The end.
Now is the time in our service to join together in this spiritual practice of generosity. Our gifts of both time and money support our church. Each week, we would like to spot a group or committee and thank them for the gift of their time. And I would like to spotlight the RE volunteers, all the wonderful volunteer teachers that offered to go down and spend time with the kids on Sundays. Dorothy Hoskins, Laura Wink, Karen Alvarez, Pat Mells, Lynn Overgaard. I'm sure there are more, and there have been more in the past. Thank you, thank you. And there's a new RE committee being formed to try to make some plans about going forward with planning for our kids, and that's going to be Brandon and Laura Wink and Jill Paremba, Laura and me, and Reverend Eileen. So thank you. Our kids are important, and it's the way that we grow our church. Thank you for your time. And anybody else interested in that can talk to me. 1/4 of our plate collection, though, every week this month or this season will be going to Climate Solutions Accelerator of the Genesee Finger Lakes region, an organization working for a thriving region on a healthy planet, achieved through bold, systemic climate solutions that promote prosperity and security for all. That's a great goal. Hope we can help with that. So now we will gratefully accept the offering. Not many joys and sorrows that were written down, but I'm sure that you have them in the silence of your hearts. There was one, gratitude for being loved despite all our imperfections. And for all the other joys and sorrows in the silence of our hearts, I will drop a pebble. And please repeat after me, we are with you. We are with you. And now I guess we can send the kids downstairs. If you want to go.
I now invite you into a quieter space of meditation. So if you would like to close your eyes, begin to breathe more deeply, to ground your feet on the floor in whatever way that is comfortable and feels right for you in your body today. As I read these words from Denise Levertov. An awe so quiet, I don't know when it began. A gratitude had begun to sing in me. Was there some moment dividing song from no song? When does dew fall begin? When does night fold its arms over our hearts to cherish them. When is daybreak? Let us now take a moment of silence to open our minds and hearts to this place of quiet, to the silent prayer for the healing of pain and for the soft, gentle coming of love. And when you're ready, open your eyes, take a fresh breath, resettle into your chair. And we will sing hymn number 123, Spirit of Life. So in this story, the pilgrim seeks all these wonderful things and is told that we only sell seeds here. In the same way, Sunday morning is a place for us to gather inspiration and perhaps some seeds and tools, some hoes and some rakes and some fertilizer even, and then we must go and plant our promises, our values, our principles, all the things that we talk about here in the soil of our own lives. And so the other, 160 something hours that we spend during the week are just as important as the time we spend here for developing our faith, developing our practices, developing the things that will sustain us in a good life. And by a good life, I mean a life well lived, and also a life that is happily lived, a life that is fulfilling for us and gives back to the world. So hopefully we are planting the seeds of justice as a community in our wider world, in our communities, our nation, our world, for more justice and equity and compassion, as our second principle states. But we can plant these seeds in our own personal lives too. And the ground is that grind of daily living that we go through every single day, and sometimes becomes so familiar that we can go to sleep, just go through our days, go through our lives, go through our routines, and forget that every moment we're creating that good life. So what kinds of seeds are we planting? What kinds of seeds are we nurturing? we can find practices in our tradition that can help us to center into our lives. And during this month, when many people are looking at seed catalogs and are ordering things, right, and dreaming of what will grow later, we can think about seeds we can plant in the soil of our own lives. Now, many UUs have practices that perhaps we've borrowed from other traditions. I myself am a meditator who follows many Buddhist practices, and that's wonderful and great. After all, one of our sources is wisdom from the world's great religious traditions, right? So we may certainly find inspiration and solace and meaning in practices from other religious traditions, as long as we do it respectfully and are aware of how we are borrowing from these deep traditions. But we can also find practices, perhaps practices that we're already doing, and with a little bit more awareness, we can find a deep connection to our Unitarian Universalist roots as well. And so today, I want to talk to you about that very thing that we just sang about, connecting to the deep roots of our faith and also innovating things in our own way to set our wings free, to take us where we want to go. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about our spiritual ancestors and a little bit about what they believed in and what they did in their daily lives and how we can maybe connect with them in our own way. The first approach I want to talk to you about is what I would call the path of self-awareness. And I wanted to talk about our spiritual ancestor, William Ellery Channing, who was a very famous minister in his time. He was well known all over the country, and he is perhaps best remembered now for owning the term Unitarianism, right? He was the one who, rather than allowing that to be thrown at him as an epithet, he said, all right, yes, I'm a Unitarian. I believe in the oneness of God. And he sort of owned this negative term and turned it around. And then pretty soon the rest of the Unitarians, people who became known as Unitarians, followed. But Channing was also someone who believed very deeply in a home personal practice of religion. In fact, he stated in his writings that the home is the chief school of human virtues. And he wrote a long, extended essay that we would probably call a book nowadays. It was so long. It probably should have had many chapters. It was called Daily Prayer. And he really strongly believed in this daily practice of prayer. He used his prayer life as a sort of a life review. And so while he might have talked about self-improvement or the practice of virtue, the cultivation of virtue, we might talk more in our modern context about self-awareness, understanding our own lives, and developing insight into what's happening with us, where we want to be, whether we're truly living in tune with our values. And so I use the term self-awareness. Now, Channing recommended that we he would say pray, and I'm going to kind of open that up to the idea of kind of checking in with ourselves, starting the day in a place of awareness, right? So he recommended mornings and evenings as great times to do this practice of daily check-in. And during his daily prayer in the morning, he would give gratitude for being given another day to live. It was certainly in his time not a sure thing that you would have another day to live, that you would wake up in the morning. So gratitude for waking up and living another day, and then an intention, or as he would say, a resolve to make it a good day, to to live into his virtues and his beliefs, to grow closer to God as he would have expressed it. And so we can also wake with the morning and we can set an intention for our day. We can give gratitude for this life that we have and spend at least a brief second in connecting with the idea that we are fortunate to be alive, that just to be on this earth is a gift. Now, Channing also recommended the evening as a great time to practice this self-awareness or this personal check-in, this time of insight. And many people do this with a journal, right? Many people practice an entry a night of journal, how you're feeling, what the day has been like. I have really struggled with journaling in my life, even though I know the research on people that do journals and how it really brings a new dimension of self-understanding and is also a wonderful keepsake. And after the fact, you can look back on your life and look over the patterns. And I've really struggled with that because I lead a pretty frenetic life. I'm a busy mom, and evenings are not always a great time for me, as Channing felt they were. So I want to tell you about just a couple of little practices, and I'm going to give you some things that I've done in my life, and hopefully you can take them, take something that sounds cool to you or sounds interesting and maybe put it into practice in your life. And if nothing does, at least maybe it will spark you to go out and find your own seeds and the ones that speak to you in the garden of your choice. So with my practice of checking in each evening, I found a way that I could do it. And I don't think I brought it with me, but the way I started when my son was really little and I was a busy mom was I had this little glass jar, and I called it the memory jar. And I would just take little tiny pieces of paper, maybe a little bit bigger than this, and I would ask my son, what do you want to remember about today? What was your favorite thing that happened today? Or what was special about today? And we would kind of go over the day. It took just a second. It was part of our bedtime routine. And I would I would write it down, I would fold it up and put it in the jar with the date on it. And then at the end of the year, we would find that we had missed a few days, but we could keep it going because it was just a very brief little practice. And at the end of the year, we would look at the little pieces of paper in the jar, and we would kind of see our whole year and how it went. It was such a beautiful time for the two of us to connect and note the passage of time and the change of the seasons and the things that had happened to us over the year, the people that we loved who came in and out of our lives. It was just a really special practice. So I've tried to keep it going. And now what we're doing. Yeah. Okay, good. I brought it. So now what we're doing is I found my son's 12 now, and he's a little more able to, visualize things in a book and, visualize the passage of time and whatnot. So I found this type of journal that's called 1 line a day. And each day is 5 years worth of the same day. So like this page has February 24th, and there are tiny little sections, and you can write the year in. And so now each night we write a short reflection, each of us, and it takes a second. And my hope is that we'll keep this going for 5 years. And at the end of 5 years, we'll have this keepsake of our lives together. And I love the idea of thinking about him having it all of his life, if he holds on to things, and really appreciating the time that we took, just a brief moment each evening to to check in with each other and to review our day. And I think about William Ellery Channing, and I think he would be proud of us for making this effort to be aware of our lives. Now, the second path that I want to share with you is the path of connection with everything, with all that is. And in this sense, I think our guides, our spiritual guides, are Ralph Waldo Emerson and Henry David Thoreau, who were known as transcendentalists, right? They believed in the beauty and the mystery of nature. This romantic connection with nature was where they experienced the sacred. And Thoreau particularly said, "I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life and to see if I could not learn what it had to teach, and not when I came to die, discover that I had not lived." And so there is this sense of connecting with the beauty all around us and with nature. But there's also, I think, in Thoreau, a sense of clearing away a space in the busyness of our lives, in whatever way that speaks to you. So it doesn't always have to be long walks on the moors or long romantic communing with nature, although that is certainly very powerful for me, and I think it was powerful for Emerson and Thoreau. But anytime that we clear away a space and we create a silent place of intention, I think that we are following in the footsteps of the author of Walden. Thoreau, of course, famously went to Walden Pond to live in the woods for a while, and we can pick that all apart knowing what we know now, that he often went into town to hang out with his friends, and he had his mother do his laundry and all of those things. But the intention was there, right, to clear away the busyness, the meaninglessness of the ways that life catches us up, and to really look at what's important. And so we can do that too. And I want to show you something else that I do with my son. So my kid is just this collector of pine cones. Everywhere we go, he collects pine cones, and they were collecting in my house, and they were overflowing in his pockets, and it was kind of a mess. So I decided to create a space, an altar, where we could celebrate his habit of collecting pine cones. And so every day when we walk our dog, he usually picks up a pine cone. And if he doesn't kick the pine cone with it and it's destroyed by the time we get it home, we bring it in and we place it in this chalice. And as we do so, I feel like we're celebrating our time outdoors, celebrating our time together. And we are also noticing the cycles of life, noticing the living things around us that are part of this interdependent web of life, which we're a part of. That's our seventh principle, of course. And reminding ourselves that we're not separate from nature, that we are a part of it. And so this path of connection becomes real for us by, inviting these little talismans in that my son loves to collect. So I invite you to think about a way that maybe there could be some kind of embodied practice for you as you travel through the outdoors. Maybe there's a way for you to find greater connection and pause for a moment, clear away this busy stuff of life, and really ask yourself how you're doing ask yourself how you're feeling. Take a moment to be grateful and glad. Take a moment to just be with yourself. And the final seed that I want to give you today as a possible idea for a way to take our faith home and make it a full week faith involves the chalice. It involves our flaming chalice. The flaming chalice was created during World War II when the Unitarian Service Committee, and I see you have a banner of the UU Service Committee back here, just that I'm facing. So the Unitarian Service Committee during World War II was trying to help get people out of Europe who were vulnerable to being persecuted by the Nazis and being imprisoned. So they needed a symbol, something they could put in the windows of their offices and in other places where Unitarians were working to bring freedom to folks that were in danger. And so they had an artist create this flaming chalice. And so it was really just a logo at the beginning. And then it kind of caught on, it caught fire, you might say. And so after World War II was over, congregations, our free faith, our congregations began to freely adopt this chalice and make chalices and light them during their worship services. And I love the idea that this started out as just a logo, as something two-dimensional and a kind of an avatar, and it grew into something that took form and took shape and that caught on and kind of went viral. And so what this also means is that while the chalice has deep meaning for each of us, there's no kind of special arcane process that creates a sacred chalice. And so we're all free to find a bowl with a foot and a stem and put a light in it, a candle or an oil lamp, and use it as we see fit to practice our faith in whatever way that has meaning for us. And in doing that, I think we're taking the path of divine presence, or the path of intentional sacredness that perhaps our ancestor Sophia Lyon-Fahs best expressed when she said, "Life becomes sacred whenever we decide to make it so." So there's nothing inherently sacred about this bowl with a stem and a foot that we light on fire, except that we make it so by our presence together or by our intention to live out our values. And so that also means that in the spirit of great 20th century theologian James Luther Adams, who spoke of the prophethood and priesthood of all believers, that the clergy class doesn't have any particular claim to this symbol, that the sanctuary is not the only place where we can use this symbol, because it becomes sacred when we make it so. So I want to offer that to you and invite you, if it feels right for you, to let a chalice come into your life, and maybe have one at home and use it in whatever way feels right for you. And I want to show you a couple of chalices that I have, because there's lots of ways to find them. This one actually, it's kind of Christmassy, so it's a little out of season. But I found this one in a thrift store for, I think, $1.99. So they are all around. Old compote bowls or candy dishes or sherbet bowls. Maybe you have some at home already, and you can put a candle in it and light it when you wish. Of course, you can also find fancy chalices online, because, as I said, this tradition has really caught on since the creation of this logo. So this is a beautiful hand-thrown chalice by my friend Kimberly Tomczyk Carlson, who's also a UU minister. And then I do have a little bit of a chalice purchasing problem, you might notice. But I always have to rescue them from thrift stores. So here's another one that I found in a thrift store. And then this one was a candle at Target. It had a candle in it, which I burned down, a scented candle, and now it makes a lovely chalice. And none of these were terribly expensive. Perhaps the hand-thrown one was a little bit. How would we use our chalices at home? Well, you could always, if you're joining us virtually, we invite you to light a candle or a chalice at home, along with the worship service, along with the one being ignited here. Personally, I also use the chalice for my meditation sessions to kind of give a Unitarian Universalist flavor. And one of the things that I've learned from another minister is that when you light a candle, it warms up your room in the same way that another person in the room would warm up your room. So it gives that's about that same amount of heat to the room. So I love that idea. So whenever I'm feeling lonely or a little sad or something, I like to light the chalice and feel the warmth of another person in the room. I also have lit the chalice when I had a friend who's UU who's going through something difficult, or when I'm going through something difficult. It seems to be just a little bit of a physical reminder that I am sending my love and care to that person. And there are lots of other ways that you can use it. I used my chalice during the hearings of the Brett Kavanaugh confirmation to the Supreme Court to support Dr. Christine Blasey Ford and her testimony and to give her strength. So you can use it in all kinds of ways. And I have found that having a chalice nearby just invites me to find other ways to deepen my connection to Unitarian Universalism and to participate in that priesthood and prophethood of all believers that JLA spoke of. And so I could go on, but I think we'll stop there because those are the seeds that I want to share with you today. And I invite you to live into Channing's invitation to make your home a place that builds Unitarian Universalist identity and practice and values, to take any of these seeds home that feel good and to plant them in the daily soil of your life and see what grows there. Thank you. Our benediction today is from May Sarton. Help us to be the always hopeful gardeners of the Spirit, who know that without darkness, nothing comes to birth, as without light, nothing flowers. And I invite you to join me in singing our closing hymn, number 86, Blessed Spirit of My Life. Rise if you would like.
Our flame actually is glowing still a little. It was not fed well enough this morning. I apologize for that. But it is still glowing just like it is, I hope, with all of you in your hearts. And so please say the chalice extinguishing words with me. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of hope, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.